Hey guys, what's going on? It's kind of late here, like midnight. But I've been thinking about making this video all day, and I just wanted to come on here and try to keep it fairly short here. I think it was exactly 2 years ago, like within the week, that a good friend of mine from church took me up to a homeless shelter and dropped me off. I'd been robbing my family, my little sister, my brothers, my mom and dad, my brother. Uh, that was there for me like nobody else, and I still stole from him. And I just want to point out how low I was. That nobody out of my 13 brothers and sisters or mom and dad wanted me at their house. 2 years later, 2 years, I own my own business. I work for myself, my own place, and I don't even think about drugs. I mean, I could relapse because I never say I won't. Never say never. But I feel far away. But there's something that I'm more afraid of or more concerned about than using, and that's what I want to talk about tonight. How did I do it? What was different this time? I went to like 7 rehabs, 2 or 3 detoxes. I gave up. I didn't think rehab worked. One of the things that I started thinking about today and really recognizing was how big of a monster depression was in my life. After the tornado in 2012, I started getting really depressed, and that was affecting me in so many ways. And looking back, I feel like if I would have just known and understood that depression is actually what drove me to the drugs as much as anything. And I think for a lot of us, that's what it is. And then you have to ask, what is depression, and how do you fight it? When you're fighting drugs, you don't do drugs. You're trying to get sober. But when it comes to depression, what is it, and how do we fight it? And I think that's the one thing that I've come to understand. To me, it's as important or more important. For me, it's more important to not be depressed than it is to not do drugs. Because when I get depressed over an extended period of time, I don't know what I would do. I mean, I don't trust myself. I just know I can't go there. I went through some really hard stuff recently, and people were telling me, allow yourself to feel the pain and deal with it. Don't hide from it like you used to in the past. And, a lot of value in that. But I realized that it's a little different for me, because I would start to feel that pain and that darkness, and I would just start to recognize this depression, on the verge of depression. I know where that leads. I know what that takes me, where that takes me. So recognize what you're fighting. If you're in addiction, trying to get out of addiction, or even if it's just depression, recognize that depression is 95%, this is my opinion, fear of the unknown. Fear of fear of what might happen to you or your family. The acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real. So it's not necessarily going to happen, probably not going to happen, but you're afraid of it. You're afraid of letting down your family. You're afraid of letting down yourself. You're afraid you can't achieve what you've always wanted to achieve. Recognize what you're up against and then start from there. Obviously, there's a lot of basics. Build good relationships. That's helped me tremendously. Um, be vulnerable and real. Who cares what you used to do? And if people will look down on you, man, realize that you got to wake up with yourself every morning. And if you can share your story and be real, man, who cares if somebody's going to judge you for it? It's your life. It ain't their life. If you're not real with yourself, you're going to have a hard time being real with others. And when you are real with others, others won't get you because you're not being real to yourself. So start being vulnerable. That really helped me. I'm not embarrassed that I was an addict. I'm not embarrassed that I was in a homeless shelter 2 years ago. Yeah, it hurts. You know, worse that I stole from my family, but I'm not embarrassed of that. That's who I was. It's what I did in at my lowest, but what I've become is what's important. We are not our addiction. We are not our disease. We are not our worst moments. It's something we're going through. I want to come back to this depression thing. Something that I would say is the definition of depression is the absence of meaning, or maybe better said, the absence of purpose. So, when you hit hard times and you don't have good purpose in your life, one of the first things that happens is that we go down into that low place. That's natural. We're all going to do it. But if you don't have something bigger than your little bubble that you're living in, you're going to stay there. You have to have a reason to pull out, and that reason has to be purpose. You need to understand that we're here on earth for a reason. I like to think of us as puzzle pieces, okay? You can fulfill a need that this world has that nobody else can. God created you with a skill set that nobody else has to help people that nobody else can help. And that's a motivating factor to get you up and going. But you need to connect to that. And here's where the spiritual aspect comes in. Understand that God created you. He knows, the Bible says He knows the hairs on your head. He knows everything about you, every thought, because He's the one that has the purpose for you. There's a destiny and a path for you to walk, and God created that. So get to know Him, and He will show you. John 15:15 says, I no longer call you servants or slaves, but I call you friends. And everything that the Father has made is made known to you, and I will make it known to you. So that's good news, okay? The man that made you is going to tell you what your future is. You're going to feel it. No, it's not an audible voice, but you connect to it and you know, and that's when that thing comes alive in you. And the high and the satisfaction you get from living into that is greater than anything else. And that's where you begin to pull out of depression. That's when you lose your job or your relationships or bad things happen to you and you don't get stuck in that low. You pull out of it. You begin to realize that that's not who you are. It's a season. We all go through bad things. But have something that's big enough that can catapult you and keep you out of that low place. We're going to feel it, but it's not your reality. And then one more thing I want to talk about real quick is how important health is. I talk about this all the time, but we're all so damaged. Most of our bodies, not just addiction, but even depression. When we go through that, and we're not healthy, our minds aren't thinking right. You might think, I don't like working out. Well, then just eat healthy. But it takes discipline. If you're depressed or addicted and you want to get out, one thing I can guarantee you is it's going to take discipline. A lot of discipline. You're going to wake up with yourself every morning. There's no rescue boat coming. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm trying to be real. I ain't going to tickle your ears. It's going to be hard. The longer you were in it, the longer it's going to take you to get out of it. So set your minds, commit to the course, recognize what you're fighting against, find a purpose, get around good people, and get healthy. And when you have all these things working in your favor, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known those and got those the first time I tried to get sober, because I was like carrying maybe one of those, the desire to be sober. And I'm sorry guys, that's not enough. If you just want to be sober or you just want to not be depressed, it's not enough. You got to have more education. You got to have people in your life. You got to know what you're fighting. I can't say that enough. You got to know what you're fighting. And you got to realize that you got to be real, because you're going to wake up with yourself. It's going to be you that you face every day. You can lie to anybody you want, but you can't lie to yourself. Hope this helps somebody. Comment if you guys like this or have ideas, or a little bit of a story on how depression affects you, or what your opinion is on depression being the main factor in addiction. So these are some of my thoughts on it, and I'll probably put in the depression and the purpose and destiny that we have, how that affects you in addiction, in some other videos too. God bless you guys.